Hello.
Hi.
All of my audience. Alright. So today is my informative speech on the Faroe Islands whaling, also known as the Grindagrap. This is a 1,000-year-old tradition that went all the way back to the Viking days, where the Faroe Islanders would hunt whales. This is something that not a lot of people in the world know about. It's not something that most people, other than conservationists and traditionalists in the Faroe Islands, would know. But there has been a lot of aggression in the conversation of whether we should keep this tradition or go into the new times without consistently needing to harm these animals. So in this speech, I'll be talking about the history of Grindagrap. I'll be talking about the advantages to the Faroese people, and also what the people outside of Faroe Islands believe when they see an ocean full of blood. Now, I say an ocean full of blood because you see the hunt more when you kill a whale because it's a bigger animal than you would see when you deal with a rabbit or a deer. So let me just help you picture this. You're on a cruise and you look through the porthole. You're imagining a deep blue sea, and all you see is a deep blood red sea. Something you would only see in a war where millions of people would die. So that's why a lot of the time when media catches the photos, they see it as manslaughter or a mass slaughter of a race of animals. Now, talking about the history of the Grindagrap, it normally wouldn't be called the Grindagrap right now, it'd be called the Grind. It's basically a way for Faroe people to maintain their food and their diet ever since back in the Viking days. The Faroe Islands is a waterlogged country. It's an archipelago, which means it's a bunch of different islands clustered together, but there's no direct contact to any other country. So back in those thousands of years ago, they wouldn't have a way to get the food or get anything that they would need unless they dealt with it themselves. Now, if you haven't seen any of the pictures of the Faroe Islands, the actual scenery, it's more of a rocky place where only sheep and goat may live, and only root vegetables will also grow. So they don't have much variety when it comes to their food. So even back then, everything in the ocean was free game. All the way down to starfish and everything else. Nothing was going to go to waste. Now, with that being said, pilot whales, dolphins, all of those animals that could possibly come up on their shore are free game and have been for traditions for years. And this is something that not a lot of cultures are used to. They're used to either hunting small animals for certain things and not understanding how the tradition and the communal society of the Faroe Islands lasts. Since it's such a small, compact country, these traditions are something that holds them together. When it comes to the actual slaughter of the animal, there are two main tools that are used for it. There is a blowhole hook. Now you might wonder, what do you mean by blowhole hook? Are you talking about a harpoon? Something like that? No, this has been modified from the harpoon. So back in the 1980s, this was thanks to one of my sources. I believe the author's last name was Guillermo. They were using harpoons back in the 1980s. But nowadays, since it was so inhumane the way they were killing them, because it took so long for the whales to actually die from the puncture, I think that's the best word to put it, they decided to make a hook, like a large shaped fishing hook, but it's dull at the end, where it looks like there's a ball of metal stuck to the tip. That way it can pierce through the skin in big holes to puncture the air sacs on either side of the blowhole. Now, the way that they know if the hook has hit the air sacs the proper way is if the whale still blinks. If the whale's still blinking, they will hit it again. Or they will get the knife that has to be precisely about 7.6 centimeters, no, 17.6 centimeters or 7.6 inches from handle to tip to go across the blowhole, the back to sever the spine and all of the blood arteries. This is the quickest and most humane way that they know of today to kill the pilot whales. Now, when I was talking about the hook, I mainly talked about how it killed the animal, but also it's supposed to assist multiple people in pulling that animal onto the shore. Now, I kind of jumped the gun by talking about the death of the animal. That's something that everybody in media that is focusing on this is going to focus on, is how the animal is dying. All of the after effects of the grind, not the after effects of sharing the meat throughout the entire society, or making sure that everyone understands that they are not going to be hunting anything that does not come into their bay. Now, the advantages of Faroese people for hunting these pilot whales is, like I said in the last second, is they do share the meat between all of the hunters. Now, if you think a whale, it's about a 2-ton animal. That meat could probably go around 3-4 families in a different city. Now, think of having 78 of those animals. That entire town would be able to have enough meat to last them so they won't go hungry. Even though nowadays they do have airplanes, they do have ships, they do have other means to get food imported into the country, they still need something that can sustain them in case of some issues that might happen along the line. Now, this is more on the thought process of the Faroese traditionalist people. They need this to sustain their people of all the different islands. And they don't go out searching for it, and they don't publicize selling it like other areas that have come under fire for this same situation, which would be Japan. But on society's standpoint, this shouldn't be something that we still do within the 21st century. This is something that should have been left back to the Vikings when they were herding the animals the same way they're doing now. In their long boats, instead of high engineered boats that they use to bring them in, now they use long wooden boats to bring them in because they had no other choice. But now they have a choice. And that's the thought process that comes from society. There is a coalition. One of the bigger ones is Sea Shepherd. They are very vocal about their against of the Faroese people's tradition of the Grendegrap. They believe that it's inhumane the way that they kill them, in that every time they see a scene like this, that it is slaughter. It is basically genocide. But like I've stated in the previous introduction, I mean the Faroese people, have a history and a record of every single hunt from 1584. The pilot whales have not dwindled from this hunting. They've sustained where they are. That is just to give you the viewpoint and the facts that I found within this research. Now, society, with all of these points, still say that this is an old tradition. This is something that shouldn't be a part of the world anymore, because this is basically saying, okay, we can slaughter anything, no matter what. Until you go a little bit deeper and you start understanding the nuances and the facts and the cultures and how it creates that community. Unlike the USA, where everything's about my self-success. You see more in Asian areas or in European areas, it's more of community. It's more of a community type feeling. If you go into India, you'll see one person succeeding, you'd see that entire family. So it's the same kind of concept. They're bringing the thought of teamwork into their community. And that's what I kind of enjoyed by looking through this. Now, I've talked about a little bit of the history, some of the advantages. The advantages, we know it's food, it's oil from the blubber. They take all of those things, but the one thing that they don't take is the carcass, is the body. And they just discard it back into the ocean. This is another thing that they claim is hazardous to the world. Now, with that being said, the only real thing that conservationists, I'm sorry, I can't really speak that much when it comes to those words. The only thing that conservationists can explain that would probably dwindle the amount of whale meat that's being eaten in the Faroe Islands is the fact that there is a specific chemical that can harm somebody. I think it's close to iron or magnesium that's stuck into the whale after pollution. So they, so they have a higher chance of getting sick or having cancer from eating this meat. So that is one of the reasons that they would dwindle in eating whale meat. Now, after all of these things that I've explained, you might wonder, why do I need to know this information? What's the point of understanding this? It's just to understand that when you look at somebody or you look at a different culture, there could be different nuances, there could be different factors that go into it. You never know, and you never truly understand until you look into it. At first, when you look in the media, you might see just an ocean full of blood, nothing but blood, and you think, oh, God's coming back. I never thought blood of ocean, or ocean of blood, would happen. But this is something that's normal to them. This is something that helps them throughout their years, throughout their entire history. It's just something new. So the advantages and history and even people's views can show us different things. Now, will other people's views change them? That's yet to be known. But I hope that this little video clip that I'm about to show you will kind of dig a little bit deeper into it. This is from a show called Best Ever Food Show. It's how I was acquainted with the Faroe Islands.
What might...
Let me wait for the commercial. Excuse me.
Because I heard that there's whale meat in the Faroe Islands. Well, there's no whale meat here at this restaurant. Do you think it's illegal to sell in restaurants?
I don't know about that because I wouldn't go out and I do.
A bay dyed scarlet. Lines of massive whale carcasses. When the topic of the Faroese whale hunt, known as a Grintadrop, is mentioned, these are the images that appear. Bjarski has also partaken in dozens of whale hunting missions throughout his life. How old were you the first time you saw it or partook in it?
The fact that I could walk, or maybe my mother took me with her to watch it.
Bjarski offers me a more profound look at the tradition by bringing me to Burr Bay, a Grint destination now clear of its occasional red-stained waters. Could you show me exactly how it works? A Grint always starts with a sailor, spotting a pod of pilot whales wandering into the Faroese fjords.
And you have to send a message from boat to boat until it reached the land. Then they were running and going Zimbabwe all over the villages.
Upon receiving the call, the townspeople drop what they're doing and rush to the beach with their whale harvesting tools. Meanwhile, the chasing has begun offshore. Fishing boats on shore work as a flotilla to herd the pod of whales toward the beach.
When you come close here, you make noise. You can use your screw, the propeller on the boat.
And what's the purpose of that?
Scare them, and then they come up onto the shore.